Russia's airstrikes have devastated Ukraine for months, but thanks to Canada, that's about to end. Canada has just delivered a cutting-edge air defense system that could cripple Russia's missiles, drones, and glide bombs, leaving Putin's air force powerless. What is this game-changing weapon, and why did it take so long, and how will it transform Ukraine's defense? Let's dive into the details, starting with the big question: what exactly has Canada delivered to Ukraine? We learned the answer on November 21st when Canada's Defense Minister Bill Blair announced the delivery of $406 million worth of national or Norwegian Advanced Surface-to-Air Missile Systems, or NASAMS, to Ukraine. That delivery had been a long time coming. Canada pledged these powerful aerial defense weapons to Ukraine all the way back in early 2023, with their delivery now being set to mark a turning point in the war. "I can't give you more information on that because of operational security," Blair told reporters when quizzed about the NASAMS delivery. "But we have been able to deliver at long last, and I think it's going to make a difference because it will enable them to protect communities." The delivery couldn't be timelier. Just days before Canada announced the arrival of NASAMS in Ukraine, Putin was proudly boasting that Russia had fired a new medium-range hypersonic missile at his enemy. That missile struck a Ukrainian military facility in Dnipro, where it injured 2 people. We say military facility, but it was anything but that, according to Ukraine, who said that Russia actually targeted an industrial facility being used as a rehabilitation center for people with disabilities. Facing such new weapons, especially missiles being targeted at more civilian infrastructure, means that Ukraine needs more aerial defenses. The NASAMS delivers. The Government of Canada website went into more detail about the delivery. It says the new NASAMS units will strengthen Ukraine's air defenses not only at military sites but also in population centers and key civilian infrastructure. The weapon system will also help Ukraine to make better use of the more than 300 air defense missiles Canada has delivered to Ukraine since Putin started his special military operation. Blair was also quick to thank Canada's other partners for finally making the delivery. "Canada's support for Ukraine is steadfast, and we will continue to step up and build on our contributions to Ukraine in their fight against Russia's invasion," said Blair. "We thank the United States, as well as our partners in Norway, for their collaboration and ensuring the safe arrival of Canada's donation of this NASAMS to the armed forces of Ukraine." Defense and Security Monitor says that the NASAMS donation is especially notable because Canada lacks any substantial air defense capability of its own. It used to operate the Army's Air Defense Anti-Tank System, or ADATS. The system was scrapped in 2012, and Canada has been working on a replacement for ADATS ever since. It's possible that this NASAMS donation will increase the country's momentum toward developing that new air defense program, says Defense and Security Monitor, because Russia's actions in Ukraine show how vital such systems can be. Even better for Ukraine, the arrival of its new NASAMS launcher came just weeks before Ukraine received the 6th IRIS-T air defense system committed to it by Germany. The takeaway is simple. Ukraine's air defenses against Russia just got a whole lot stronger thanks to Canada. But we come to an interesting question. If Canada committed the NASAMS launcher to Ukraine at the beginning of 2023, why did it take almost 2 years for the system to arrive? It all comes down to the unique way that Canada aimed to donate its NASAMS. Rather than purchase and deliver the system directly, Canada instead chose to piggyback on a much larger arms purchase being made by the United States. The goal was simple. The US was making this purchase so it could donate more weapons to Ukraine. Canada only needed to provide the $406 million needed for the NASAMS for the US to add to its own aid package. The system would be bought and sent, expediting the delivery process. Only that didn't happen. Part of that was due to Canada's own delays in transferring the funds. It committed to delivering the NASAMS in January 2023, but it didn't send the money the US would need to make the purchase on Canada's behalf for 4 months. Thus, the entire purchase process was delayed. The US couldn't negotiate a contract with Kongsberg Defense and Aerospace, the NASAMS manufacturer, until it had that money in hand. America also needed to gain congressional approval for its own aid package, further delaying the negotiations for the NASAMS until that approval was finally granted in May 2023. Okay, so that accounts for 5 months of delays. But it took around 18 more months for the NASAMS to arrive in Ukraine. Why? Canada has been tight-lipped on the problems that followed and hasn't disclosed any official information. Blair himself touched on the negotiations issue, telling the Edmonton Journal in March 2024 that the back and forth between the US and Kongsberg went on longer than anybody had imagined it would. "The Americans have to secure the funding in order to finalize the contracts," Blair commented when talking not only about the NASAMS purchase but several others that the US intended to make from Kongsberg. "We've tried to expedite that. Unfortunately, the Americans ran into some challenges in their own funding envelope." Reading between the lines, we see that Canada's decision to piggyback onto an American military aid donation did nothing to expedite the NASAMS delivery. Internal American politics and funding delays resulted in the NASAMS not being purchased, even though Canada had delivered the funding to the US around a year prior. The whole purchase was left in limbo for over a year. That created a whole whole world of problems, with Blair saying the lack of the expedited timeline Canada had hoped to create via its coalition with the US could instead lead to the NASAMS delay taking years to resolve. Thankfully, that's not what happened. There were also manufacturing bottlenecks to consider. The NASAMS Canada intended to buy for Ukraine wasn't even built yet, with Kongsberg delegating those duties to Raytheon Technologies. Not only did that create a secondary negotiation, delaying things further, but it meant that a bottleneck was inevitable, even if the funding had been secured early. The system would still need to be built from scratch. The result for Ukraine was what we've now seen. 2 years of delays for an air defense system that is desperately needed to defend itself against constant Russian bombardments. If NASAMS had arrived at some point in 2023, even toward the end of the year, Ukraine could have used it to protect cities in the Donetsk region or key infrastructure, as Putin made his 2024 eastern push. Instead, Ukraine dealt with a world of pain while it waited. But wait it did, and it finally has NASAMS in its hands, which brings us to another question. What can NASAMS deliver to Ukraine? Entering service in 1997, NASAMS is a ground-based air defense system developed as part of a team-up between Kongsberg and RTX Corporation. It's crewed by 2 people and is used to shoot down practically any incoming aerial weapon, including cruise missiles, helicopters, and crucially, unmanned aerial vehicles. It's even capable of taking out some fixed-wing aircraft, though its missiles aren't quite fast enough to tackle the latest fighter jets. When Norway conceived of this system, it intended to use NASAMS to replace its Nike Hercules systems to bolster the defense of its southern air bases. The idea was to create a layered defense. NASAMS would fire from the ground while F-16s would take to the skies to tackle incoming threats. The system initially used the Norwegian adapted Hawk, or NOAA, a program comprised of a pair of color CRT displays, some KS500F computers, and a KMC 9000 control console to serve as its command and control system. However, the problem with NOAA was that it was only capable of tracking a single target per launch pad. That's fine for a single aerial threat. But when dealing with bombardments of cruise missiles, as well as the drones that came later, NOAA simply wasn't fit for purpose. Norway eventually replaced NOAA with the AIM-120 AMRAAM missile system, which brought inertial navigation systems into the mix and gave NASAMS the ability to hit multiple targets. Upgrades to the radar followed, with testing showcasing the system's effectiveness and leading to official production in 1997. There have since been multiple versions of NASAMS, each delivering its own tweaks. NASAMS 2 upgraded the system's ground radar, along with enabling the use of Link 16, the standardized communication system favored by the United States and NATO. NASAMS 3 came along in April 2019 with an improved Fire Distribution Center station, a new trio of flat-panel displays, and a tweaked Mark II canister launcher capable of firing AIM-9X Sidewinder Block II missiles and AMRAAM-ERs, in addition to the AIM-120 AMRAAMs the weapon could already fire. Canada hasn't specified which version of the NASAMS Ukraine is getting, but given that the system had to be built before delivery, it's safe to assume that NASAMS 3 has arrived in Kyiv. The standard specs for NASAMS show just how impressive this weapon can be. It's capable of providing air defense at medium and long range, with its maximum range extending to 111.8 miles, more than enough distance to take out an incoming threat before it has a chance to touch down. NASAMS also has both active and passive tracking modes. In other words, the system can keep its eyes on the skies even without its crew manning it. Each missile the system fires can reach speeds of up to Mach 2.7, making them more than fast enough to deal with drones and helicopters, as well as glide bombs and most of the Soviet-era missiles Russia has used to pelt Ukraine. Those missiles are propelled by a solid-fueled rocket motor, and each one can weigh up to 335 pounds. Typically, the AMRAAM and Sidewinder missiles the NASAMS fires are packed with the AIM-120C high-explosive blast fragmentation warhead. These warheads deliver a double whammy of pain to Russian targets. The blast creates a shockwave, disorienting and potentially damaging Russian drones and missiles in flight. That shockwave is followed by fragmentation of the missile, which sees dozens of metal fragments projected away from the explosion at extremely high speeds to shred through the target. The NASAMS launcher is also impressive. The system comes packed with a trio of multi-missile launchers, with each carrying up to 6 missiles that are secured inside protective canisters. That allows the launcher to fire up to 18 missiles at once before needing to reload, allowing it to encounter any incoming Russian aerial barrage with one of its own. And it gets better. The NASAMS is capable of hosting 4 of these launcher trios, bringing its total launches to 12, and the number of missiles it can fire simultaneously to 72, each missile streaming toward a different target. And it's fast. NASAMS can unleash this full 72-missile volley in just 12 seconds, which, when combined with the missiles each being capable of reaching Mach 2.7 and the NASAMS' massive range, means Ukraine can easily counter any incoming missile and drone barrage it detects. The launcher is also portable, allowing Ukraine to transport it around the country and conceal it when it's not in use, so it's leveraged where it's most needed. Norway's military typically uses Scania 113H 6x6 trucks to transport its NASAMS. However, the system is flexible enough to be transported by multiple types of trucks. Spain uses Iveco, and Finland moves its NASAMS with Sisu trucks, meaning Ukraine has options in this department. The launcher also has a built-in hydraulic system used to help load and offload from trucks and position it when it's on the ground. That mobility also aids in reducing risk for the NASAMS two-person crew. They can remotely control the system when it's in active mode from a distance of up to 15.5 miles. So if Russia somehow manages to target and destroy Ukraine's NASAMS, there will be the small solace of the crew likely being spared and remaining intact to operate any future NASAMS Ukraine receives. In short, NASAMS is an impressive weapon. That's likely why 13 countries are still actively buying it from Kongsberg, with 15 also happily investing in the command and control solution the NASAMS uses. Those countries include the United States. NASAMS were installed in Washington, D.C. to protect key governmental assets, where they've been active since 2005. So how does Ukraine intend to use its Canadian-delivered air defense system? In 2 words, drone defense. Drones have been a hallmark of the Ukraine war on both sides of the conflict. Ukraine has used them to great effect to launch attacks on Russia's oil refineries, limiting the flow of much-needed fuel to the front lines, and even to take out some of the Black Sea Fleet. But Russia hasn't been far behind, and it's ramping up its own use of drones to combat Ukraine's innovations in the conflict. We saw this on January 20th, when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky revealed just how intensive Russia's drone usage had become. He revealed that in the week beginning January 15th, Russia had launched a series of mass aerial attacks against numerous targets in Kharkiv, Lviv, Khmelnytsky, and Ivano-Frankivsk. There was also a missile attack on Kyiv, which killed 3 and injured 3. All told, the week saw Russia launch 550 drones, around 60 missiles, and a staggering 660 of its aerial glide bombs. Ukraine managed to thwart some of the attacks. Zelensky says the country's military shot down 33 of the 60 missiles, along with 311 drones. A further 136 drones failed to reach their intended targets despite a lack of Ukrainian military intervention. These numbers show the true scale of the aerial attacks Ukraine faces, with Zelensky making the country's position very clear. I am grateful to all our soldiers, military aviation, anti-aircraft gunners, electronic warfare units and mobile fire groups, said Ukraine's president. But the task remains unchanged. Continue strengthening our skies protection. Zelensky also called for the delivery of more Patriot air defenses. Just a couple of weeks earlier, Ukraine's Navy also revealed how vital those air defenses are. It says it managed to shoot down 37,000 drones during 2024, a stunning figure that amounts to around 101 drones per day. And that's just Ukraine's Navy. Add aerial and ground forces to that mix, and we may be able to double or even triple those numbers. Russia has also committed to manufacturing more than 32,000 drones per year by 2030, along with purchasing massive quantities from supporters like Iran to continue its UAV assaults. The NASAMS won't be a perfect solution to this massive drone problem, but it's definitely a start. The weapon's ability to fire up to 72 missiles at once will allow it to decimate the majority of a Russian drone assault on a city or key pieces of infrastructure. Of course, Ukraine can also use the weapon to target incoming missiles, meaning it gains versatility on the ground when it comes to dealing with Russia's ever-looming aerial threats. But Ukraine needs more air defenses. In September 2024, Zelensky met with former US Secretary of Defense Jake Lloyd during a gathering of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at Ramstein base. Zelensky thanked the US for its then recent $250 million aid package, before adding that Russia's increasing use of missiles and drone assaults meant that Ukraine was in dire need of additional air defense systems. Zelensky repeated these claims in December 2024 during an online address to the Joint Expeditionary Force Summit. We need the full implementation of the agreements on air defense deliveries, particularly those made at the NATO summit in Washington, he told the summit's participants. We remember that to compensate for the inability to invite Ukraine to join the NATO alliance at that stage, a significant number of air defense systems were promised to us. I ask for your help to deliver on this. How many more air defense systems does Ukraine need? Between 12 and 15 if the country is to fully protect itself from Russia's aerial bombardments. Canada's delayed delivery of the NASAMS takes Ukraine a little closer to total defense, but as Zelensky points out, more needs to be done to protect the Ukrainian skies and, by extension, minimize Russia's attacks on its energy, military, and civilian infrastructure. As for Canada, the NASAMS delivery allows it to cement its place as one of the most important contributors to Ukraine's defense. Its contributions certainly haven't won't stop at hardware like the NASAMS. As we speak, there are 350 Canadian Armed Forces personnel stationed in Ukraine, contributing to the training of Ukraine's soldiers. Those personnel have helped Ukraine improve the abilities of 43,000 troops who are sent into the field. Canada also worked as part of the training coalition designed to help Ukraine's fighter pilots get up to speed on the workings of the F-16s it's received, and is still in the process of receiving from its Western allies. Add all of this to the $4.5 billion in military assistance Canada has committed to Ukraine since the beginning of 2022, funding that will support military aid deliveries through 2029, and Zelensky has a clear partner that not only contributes directly, but is working hard behind the scenes to make Ukraine's military even stronger. As if to solidify that relationship, Canada was also one of the first countries to give Ukraine the go-ahead to use many of the weapons it had delivered as it wanted during Ukraine's invasion of Russia's Kursk Oblast back in August 2024. "Ukrainians know best how to defend their homeland, and we're committed to supporting their capacity," said Canadian Defense Department spokesperson André-Anne Poulin at the time. Nothing has changed. In fact, Canada seems to be getting even more involved in the Ukraine war. Beyond finally delivering the much-needed NASAMS to Ukraine, Canada is also trying to help Ukraine win the drone war with Russia. We see this in its deliveries of drones to Ukraine, including 800 Skyranger R-70 multi-mission UAVs, valued at $95 million, that it sent to Kyiv in February 2024. Canada also expressed an interest in joining the drone coalition created by Latvia to support Ukraine, and other countries threatened by Putin's ambition, to help Latvia come closer to becoming a key drone supplier to Ukraine. Make no mistake about it, Canada's support is worth its weight in gold to Ukraine and Volodymyr Zelensky. The NASAMS is just one of many examples of Canada supporting Ukraine directly and behind the scenes. We can only wait to see what's next for this budding military alliance and what it will mean for Putin as he continues to try and complete his special military operation through massive aerial assaults. But what do you think about the delivery of the NASAMS to Ukraine? Has Canada given Zelensky and his military a game-changing weapon that nullifies Russia's aerial strategy? Will we see more NASAMS arrive in Ukraine in the future? Share your thoughts below, and thank you for watching the video.